Welcome in to the Fun Astrology Podcast. Tuesday, July 18th, we are celebrating 2 fingers of God in the chart today. Let's talk about that in addition to our newly minted Leo moon. The moon snuck into Leo while you were sleeping if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. It happened right after midnight Eastern Time, so for a lot of you, this was yesterday's business. If you think about the moon in Leo, and you've heard all these weather reports of how hot it is across Arizona, the Southwest, and many parts of the United States, that's the difference between the moon leaving Cancer and moving into Leo. It was so cozy at home in Cancer, and it is so hot. Oh, the summer heat wave in the Northern Hemisphere is on. And also remember, that means aspects to both Pluto and the nodes of the moon by the moon. So what are we dealing with there? Well, an opposition to Pluto and squares to the nodes. So square and opposition, there's tension around this evolving into these areas of karmic work that we're doing. So if you're feeling a little pressured in those areas, just hang in there. It's going to be okay. Use the tension or the feelings that come up to make extra ground, extra progress. You know, if it's easy, then you really don't get the work, right? So if you're feeling it, use it. Now that brings us to the second part of this conversation. That is that we now have 2 Yods in the chart. So this second one has Neptune at the top, the South Node at the bottom, and Venus also at the bottom in sextile to the South Node. The first Yod that we talked about last week is still there, and as we said, it is going to be there for quite a while. That has Venus and Mars at the top, Neptune and Pluto in a sextile at the base. So if we pull the veneer off of both of these, what are we left with? Well, basically Neptune and Venus, with Venus having a double shot because it rules that South Node, which is part of the base of the new one. And of course, Venus is going retrograde on Saturday. And that chart has some potholes in it, I'm telling you. We'll probably start to set that up tomorrow because the weekend is really pretty packed. So we'll unfold that beginning with some retrograde stuff tomorrow, I'm thinking is what we will do. So Neptune is in both, Venus is in both, and the South Node is basically ruled now by Venus. So on the video podcasts, which I'm actually, when I'm recording this, I'm not sure if it's going to be on TikTok or not, but I think we're at least going to have it on Fun Astrology Podcast on Instagram and the Fun Astrology Podcast YouTube channel. And we'll get TikTok figured out. It's just that I'm not going to do a bunch of versions for every one of those, so it's like one, and it may not work well on TikTok. We'll see. But this is all about what we love. This is what is dear to us, what's close to our heart. Is going to be under this whole examination, under both Yods and Venus going retrograde. Is this something to fear? I think absolutely not. I mean, one of the things you could do is use it as a values reset. Like, am I focusing on the right things in my life? Take a little bit of time to examine that. Like, for example, I was talking to somebody just last week who was talking about astrology and that they wanted it to be more prominent in their life, but had been holding back from kind of making it public because of, how things are accepted. And then, of course, you want to grow into it to a point where you're comfortable saying, hey, I'm, in this space and I'm doing this, and that you kind of know a little bit about what you're talking about when you tell people that. But also there's this, how is the public going to perceive it? So there's a re-examination of something very dear that was more internalized that is now going to become more externalized. Maybe for you it's the opposite. Maybe you've been too out there with some things, you've been too involved in some things, and you realize that you don't love them anymore. And it's time to bring it in. Like the crab, you go hide for a little bit, you protect yourself, you grow a bigger shell, and then you can expand into bigger space. And then Neptune, I've got Neptune merged with my soul. So Neptune calls us into looking squarely in the face of what's true for me. Don't have to answer to anybody else but your own self. What am I telling myself that's not true? You don't have to answer that question to anyone. Not your spouse, not your kids, not your counselor, not your therapist, to yourself. Where am I really? Why am I doing this? Am I doing this to appease? Am I doing this to save a relationship? Don't do it for that reason, please. Don't try to be spiritual on somebody else's behalf. Am I masking stuff still? Am I covering it up? Am I anesthetizing it? Substances, addictions, ruled by Neptune. What do you have to have in your life today? What can you not function with between now and time to go to sleep that's in your life that you could release? That's an addiction. You go, holy cow, I get it. I can't live without X. Fred Dodson, the author that I've done all these audiobooks for, is on kind of a like everything is self-contained kick right now. No externals. Everything is within. And that's why he doesn't do astrology. We talked about it a lot. We laughed about it a lot down in Florida at the recent seminar. He's like everything that he needs for his life, which is powerful, is within. And I think if you have that as a base, then you can choose what you're going to add to that. I think that's not only how I practice astrology for myself, but I've also achieved that of answers are within. I don't have one substance in my body that I need except some heart medication that I now have switched to natural stuff. I'm not taking the pharmaceutical stuff anymore. I don't have anything else that I need to rely on. So if I have a question, I take it inside first. Then I take it to astrology. Occasionally use cards, yeah, sure. But the base is intact. That's Neptune. Now, I'm going to give you a resource on the way out here because on July 2nd and 3rd on the Old Soul, New Soul podcast, Robert and I talked about quincunxes and yods in a 2-part series there, and we covered everything. And he said that the quincunx was his favorite aspect. Go over there and check that out, Old Soul, New Soul astrology podcast, and find out why he suggested the quincunx as a favorite. Whoa. All right, back tomorrow. I think tomorrow's business is going to start to unpack this very big and powerful Venus retrograde. So we'll see you back here again tomorrow.